never thought my college years would turn into a nightmare, but sometimes reality twists into something dark and twisted. It started innocently enough, a bright-eyed freshman eager to dive into the world of academia. But as the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, I began to realize that something was off about this university. It began with whispers in the halls, fleeting shadows darting just out of sight. I brushed it off as my imagination, the stress of exams and deadlines playing tricks on my mind. But then strange things started happening. Doors would slam shut on their own, lights flickered ominously in the dead of night, and the air grew thick with an oppressive chill. I tried to ignore it, to focus on my studies and push aside the growing sense of unease. But the feeling of being watched never left me, like eyes boring into the back of my skull wherever I went. Friends began to notice too. Their once bright smiles replaced with furrowed brows and nervous glances. One night, as I trudged back to my dorm room after a late study session, I felt it. The unmistakable sensation of someone following me, their presence looming just beyond the edge of my vision. I quickened my pace, heart pounding in my chest, but no matter how fast I walked, the footsteps behind me matched my own. With a shaky hand, I reached for my keys, fumbling to unlock the door to my room. Just as I stepped inside and slammed the door shut behind me, I heard it. A low, guttural growl emanating from the darkness of the hallway. I froze, my breath caught in my throat as the sound grew louder, closer. Terrified, I huddled in the corner of my room, praying for morning to come and banish the horrors of the night. But even in the light of day, the shadows lingered, twisting and writhing as if alive. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, that there was a rational explanation for everything that had happened. But deep down, I knew the truth. The university was haunted. As the weeks went by, the hauntings only grew worse. Students began disappearing without a trace, their empty beds a grim reminder of the horrors that lurked in the shadows. Rumors spread like wildfire, tales of restless spirits and vengeful ghosts haunting the halls of the university. Desperate for answers, I turned to the only person who might be able to help me, Professor Carter, a renowned expert in the occult and paranormal. But when I approached him with my concerns, his expression grew grave, and he warned me to tread carefully. "There are dark forces at work here," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. For centuries, this university has been a beacon for those who seek knowledge beyond the realms of the natural world. But with that knowledge comes a price, a darkness that threatens to consume us all. I listened in horror as Professor Carter recounted tales of ancient rituals and forbidden knowledge, of students who delved too deep into the mysteries of the universe and paid the ultimate price. He spoke of a secret society that lurked in the shadows, pulling the strings from behind the scenes, their motives shrouded in secrecy and fear. Determined to uncover the truth, I delved into the university's dark history, scouring ancient texts and forbidden tomes for any clue that might shed light on the mysteries that plagued us. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized that some secrets are better left buried. One night, as I pored over dusty manuscripts in the dim light of the library, I felt it again. The sensation of being watched, of unseen eyes boring into my very soul. I glanced around nervously, but the library was deserted, the only sound the soft rustle of pages and the distant hum of fluorescent lights. With a shiver, I turned back to my studies, determined to push aside the growing sense of dread that threatened to overwhelm me. But then I heard it, a whisper barely audible above the sound of my own heartbeat. "Leave this place," it hissed, the words echoing through the empty library like a death knell. I froze, every nerve in my body screaming at me to run, to flee from whatever unseen horror lurked in the darkness. But something compelled me to stay, to confront the darkness head-on and uncover the truth that lay hidden beneath the surface. With trembling hands, I reached for the ancient tome before me, its pages yellowed with age and bound in cracked leather. As I flipped through the pages, my eyes fell upon a passage that sent a chill down my spine. "Beware the shadows that lurk in the halls of knowledge," it read, the words etched in faded ink. For those who seek to uncover the mysteries of the universe may find themselves ensnared in a web of darkness from which there is no escape. I staggered back in horror, the truth crashing down around me like a tidal wave. The university wasn't just haunted, it was cursed, a breeding ground for unspeakable horrors that lurked in the shadows, waiting to claim their next victim. With newfound resolve, I vowed to put an end to the darkness that plagued this place, to shine a light on the secrets that had been hidden for far too long. But as I stepped out into the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, waiting patiently for the moment when it would strike. And as I disappeared into the darkness, I couldn't help but wonder if I would ever emerge again, or if I too would become just another ghost haunting the halls of this accursed university. It was supposed to be just another ordinary night at the university. I had been cramming for finals, drowning myself in textbooks and notes, when my friend, Jake, suggested we explore the abandoned university hall. Rumors had always circulated around that place. They said it was haunted, that strange things happened there. But I never believed in ghosts. Not until that night. The air was thick with anticipation as Jake and I approached the towering structure. Its windows were dark voids, like eyes peering into our souls. We hesitated at the entrance, the heavy wooden doors creaking open with a mysterious sound. A blow of wind whispered through the empty halls, carrying the scent of decay. As we ventured deeper into the building, the air grew colder, chilling me to the bone. Shadows danced along the walls, playing tricks on my mind. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease, but it clung to me like a shroud. Suddenly, we heard it, a faint whisper echoing through the corridors. My heart pounded in my chest as we followed the sound, our footsteps echoing in the silence. The whispers grew louder, more urgent, as if signal us deeper into the darkness. We found ourselves in a long-forgotten library, shelves lined with dusty tomes that seemed to watch us with malevolent intent. The whispers surrounded us, swirling like a sinister melody. I could feel eyes upon us, unseen and unrelenting. Then, without warning, the books flew off the shelves, pages fluttering like trapped birds. Jake and I stumbled backward, terror coursing through our veins. We turned to flee, but the door slammed shut before us, trapping us in that accursed place. Panic clawed at my chest as we searched for another way out, but every path seemed to lead us deeper into the labyrinthine halls. Time lost all meaning as we wandered, the whispers growing louder with each passing moment. Finally, we stumbled upon a staircase, its steps worn with age. With no other options left, we descended into the bowels of the building, our footsteps echoing like a funeral dirge. At the bottom of the stairs, we found ourselves in a vast chamber, its walls adorned with strange symbols and sigils. The air hummed with power, a palpable force that sent shivers down my spine. And then, in the center of the room, we saw her, a spectral figure bathed in ethereal light. Her eyes bore into ours, filled with a sorrow so deep it seemed to swallow the world whole. She spoke, her voice a haunting melody that echoed in the depths of my soul. She told us of the tragedy that had befallen her, of the darkness that consumed her in life and death. And she begged for our help, pleading with us to set her free from the chains that bound her to this earthly realm. But before we could respond, the chamber began to tremble, the walls closing in around us. The spectral figure wailed in anguish as the darkness enveloped her, dragging her down into the abyss. With a final scream, the chamber collapsed in on itself, leaving Jake and me alone in the darkness. We stumbled out of the ruins, shaken but alive, the echoes of her voice still ringing in our ears. As we emerged into the light of dawn, I couldn't help but wonder, had it all been a hallucination, a trick of the mind brought on by exhaustion and fear? Or had we truly encountered something beyond the realm of the living, something that defied explanation? To this day, I still don't have the answers. But one thing is certain, I will never forget the haunting of University Hall and the ghostly encounter that changed my life forever. I remember it clearly, the day I moved into my dorm room at the university. The hallways echoed with the excited chatter of new students, and the anticipation of starting a new chapter in our lives filled the air. Little did I know that my time at the university would soon turn into a true horror story that I would never forget. It all started innocently enough. My roommate, Sarah, seemed nice enough at first. She was friendly, outgoing, and we quickly became fast friends. However, as the days turned into weeks, I began to notice strange things about her. She would often stay up late into the night, pacing around the room and muttering to herself. I could hear her whispering words that I couldn't quite make out, and it sent chills down my spine. One night, I woke up to the sound of Sarah chanting in a language I didn't recognize. I opened my eyes to find her standing in the middle of the room, her eyes glazed over, and a look of pure terror on her face. When she finally noticed me awake, she stopped chanting abruptly and looked at me with a wild, manic expression. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Hear what?" I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. She shook her head and muttered something about it just being her imagination before crawling back into bed. I tried to convince myself that it was just a one-time occurrence, but the strange incidents only continued to escalate. One evening, I returned to our room to find Sarah sitting on her bed, surrounded by candles and strange symbols drawn on the floor. She was holding a book that looked ancient, its pages yellowed and frayed with age. When she noticed me standing in the doorway, she quickly closed the book and blew out the candles, but not before I caught a glimpse of the disturbing illustrations inside. I confronted Sarah about it, but she just brushed it off as a harmless hobby and assured me that there was nothing to worry about. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. Things took a turn for the worse one night when I woke up to find Sarah standing over my bed, a knife in her hand and a look of pure malice in her eyes. My heart froze as I realized that she was chanting the same eerie words that I had heard her whispering before. I screamed, and she snapped out of whatever trance she was in, dropping the knife and collapsing to the floor in tears. I immediately called campus security, and Sarah was taken away for a psychiatric evaluation. I later found out that she had been suffering from severe mental health issues and had been dabbling in the occult as a way to cope with her demons. I moved out of the dorm room the next day, but the horror of that night has haunted me ever since. It was a chilling reminder that you never really know what someone is capable of, especially when they are struggling with their own inner demons. Looking back, I often wonder if there was anything I could have done to help Sarah before things spiraled out of control. It serves as a grim reminder that mental health is a serious issue that should never be ignored or brushed aside. So, as I continue my studies at the university, I carry the memory of that terrifying experience with me, a cautionary tale of the true horror that can lurk behind the facade of a seemingly normal life.